Everybody that has a lawn, one of their goals is to always have a green, weed-free lawn. And if you're trying to do it organically and not rely on the typical chemicals that are used for weed control, that can be a challenge. We're going to spend the next couple minutes and explain how it is possible to get less weeds in a lawn without using a lot of chemicals. To get a good lawn, most people have become reliant on a lot of chemicals to try and get the grass green and to eliminate weed control. And over the years, that has become more of a challenge for people, and a lot of people just don't want to rely on all those chemicals. They'd like to still get the same results, but without having to put all those chemicals on their turf and on their property, whether they have perhaps children or pets, or for whatever reason, they just would rather not depend on those chemicals. It is possible to do that. It is obviously a little bit more challenging, but it is possible to do that. But one of the keys to a successful lawn with the minimal amount of weed growth is to understand what plants require to grow. Every plant has what we call a soil profile. That soil profile is literally different for every type of plant. The soil profile is made up of a lot of different things, including the pH of the soil, the compaction of the soil, all the various nutrients that make up the soil solution or the nutrient package, which provides the nutrients for all plants, and the air that's in the soil. And every plant has different demands or different favorite requirements that they will thrive in and do the best in. The problem is that most people, whatever their soil profile is at a particular point in time, oftentimes is not the soil profile for the plant they're trying to grow in that same area. So there's a lot of frustration because the plant they're trying to grow, whether it's turf or perhaps an ornamental of some kind, just doesn't do as well. And so they become reliant on chemicals and fertilizers and weed controls and everything else to try and get the plant they want to grow exclusively without all the other things there. So once you understand what the soil profile demands are of the plant you're growing, and you begin to take steps to get your soil and move your soil to that profile, then the plants that you want to grow will do much better and at the exclusion of the other plants. It's like a self-excluding type of principle. Typically, most weeds will thrive in a lower pH soil. They will typically do very well in hard, compacted soil. They don't need a high organic content in the soil. Weeds will pretty much grow anywhere. In fact, I've seen weeds grow through blacktop and on top of blacktop asphalt. So weeds are pretty tough, and unfortunately there is a large variety of weeds that can be grown someplace. So it's always a challenge to eliminate the weeds without reliance on a lot of chemicals. So if you take a good soil test and you understand where your soil is starting from, and again take steps to move the soil profile to what you want to be growing, in this case we're going to try and grow turf without weeds, you're able to do that without depending upon all the weed control materials. So if you get the pH up where it needs to be, which for most turfs is in the 6.2 to 6.8 range, if you take steps to improve the porosity of the soil so that you have better air and moisture exchange within the soil profile so that water drains better, those are all things that will allow the grass to grow better and not have weeds grow. Some things that you can do very simply is to mow the turf higher. By mowing the turf higher, the blade of the grass being higher tends to often shade out weeds that are growing or may want to grow, so that's helpful. Also, a higher blade of grass will actually help the soil be a little cooler and help retain some moisture. And again, weeds can grow a lot of times where you wouldn't think they would, just because that's the nature of weeds. So mowing the grass higher will allow it to be dense, helps keeps the soil a little cooler, and helps shade out potential weed growth. A lot of people have been told or led to believe that they need to core aerate or dethatch or vertical seed or slit seed if they want a really good lawn. And there are some, you can make a case for doing some of those things sometimes, but a lot of those things actually will make the weed problem worse. What people often don't understand is that weed seeds can remain viable in the soil literally for decades. And one of the things that any seed needs to germinate is sunlight. So if you disturb the soil, either with aeration or dethatching or slice seeding or vertical cutting or any of those types of operations which actually breaks the surface of the soil, you're actually exposing the weeds that were in there now to sunlight, and now they will grow. So it's not unusual when people do some type of renovation process to an established turf whether it's core aeration or a dethatching or something like that, they often, the next season, depending upon the time of year they do that, it's very likely the next season they'll have a much more intense weed problem to try and deal with. So you may want to reconsider doing some of those things that some people have said you should do in order to get a good turf. Some of those things have really marginal benefit in the long run. But that's a topic for another day. So the things to keep in mind about weeds then is get the soil profile to match the plant you're trying to grow. If it's turf or if it's other plants, other ground covers, that's fine. So get the soil to match that profile, match the pH, match the calcium levels, match the organic content in the soil, and take steps that are easy to do to help loosen up the soil and improve the porosity of the soil, and you'll have less issues with weeds. Thank you.